So there were a few leaked emails, heavily redacted, and the Oversight Committee then came back and did a huge dump of a bunch of Epstein emails, including the unredacted emails, where it has Virginia Giuffre's name as the victim, who apparently spent hours with Trump in Jeff's home. Love calling him Jeff. Yeah, we're close like that, Jeff and I. And so the Oversight Committee has all these emails, and I saw a couple of people talking about some stuff and looked into a few myself, and there was this email here from 2018 where there's just a bunch of names put together like MBR, MBS, Khashoggi, Bill Clinton, and you really don't know like the context behind this email. It's just crazy tangles, links, loops. The way that Epstein writes these emails is insane. Like Donald Trump, Woody Allen twice, Woody Allen. But then there's names like Larry Summers, Leon Black, fucking Halle Berry, I guess. This is just crazy.
Looks schizophrenic.
It really does. But then there's this email, right, from 11/7/2017, which is just the beginning of a certain period for a very oil-rich country. And Jeff writes, I am more interested in Al-Walid, Saudi purge / Jared Axis. Al-Walid and Prez go a way back, don't they? And it makes you, scratch your chin, makes you wonder, what does he mean? Well, what's going on during this time frame? Well, we have the Saudi purge that he mentioned, which started 3 days prior, I guess, because that's when he rounded up people and put them in the Ritz-Carlton. But as you'd imagine, the roundup was preempted by, some sort of research on who to round up. It just wasn't some sort of spur of the moment that day thing, but it makes you think, right? Then there's Al-Walid. Who's Al-Walid? He was once crown prince of Saudi Arabia. Al-Walid bin Talal al-Saud from, the Saud family of Saudi Arabia fame. Have you heard of oil? He's known as the Arabian Warren Buffett, and he's the head of the Kingdom Holding Company, a.k.a. one of the biggest companies in Saudi Arabia, and they own things like the Four Seasons and the Plaza Hotel, which conveniently enough bought from Trump. So when he talks about going way back, it kind of makes sense. Then there's also, if you look over here, he bought a yacht from Trump, the 65th largest yacht in the world. And it was originally built for Saudi arms dealer Adnan Khashoggi. And then after Adnan Khashoggi had it for a few years, he sold it to Trump, who then, after having it for only a few years, sold it to Al-Walid. And you're like, okay, who's Adnan Khashoggi? Well, he's a Saudi businessman and arms dealer. Great fun, right? And he earned the moniker of the Great Gatsby of the Middle East and was known as potentially a mentor to Jeffrey Epstein. And so this is Jamal Khashoggi, the nephew of Adnan Khashoggi, who was assassinated by Crown Prince, on the behest of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And you're thinking, like, what's special about this date? Well, if you factor in the time zone, right, this is a year exactly from the Las Vegas shooting, which happened at the Mandalay Bay Resort, which on the top floors of the Mandalay Bay Resort in Las Vegas is the Four Seasons, Las Vegas. Both properties are, the Mandalay Bay is owned by MGM Resorts, which is also mostly owned by Al-Walid. Again, the original guy we talked about being the Crown Prince. So if you look at the shooting, it was apparently the lone gunman, Stephen Paddock, a guy that had known CIA connections, and he was an arms dealer and stuff, right? There's body cams that we saw, original body cams, that showed that the rooms, the room that he had, none of the glass was blown out. That was blown out afterwards to make the narrative fitting, allegedly. They now report, right, that he shot out from that room, even though there's credible reports of other shooters down in the Strip, even like bit after he was supposedly apprehended, right, by that narrative. And there was helicopters reported that didn't have their flights reported to the FAA, but that was cool because, those weren't important. And then all at the same time, MBS is staying in the top floors of the hotel that this is all happening. At the same time, al-Walid is staying at the top floors of this. And the thought is that this was a power struggle of some sort, an assassination of some attempt of some sort. You can see who it could be, which ones you want to say were the players in here and which side won. It's also speculated that Jared Kushner may have been present at some point during this meeting. And why is that possible? Why is that not possible? Why is that important? Well, Jared Kushner was at the time appointed to be the head czar of fixing the Middle East. That was what Trump did. That Jared Kushner is the son-in-law of Trump. He's Ivanka's husband. And so Jared Kushner, he starts making deals with the fucking Arab states. There's the Israeli normalization of relations with Saudi Arabia, right? They stopped doing their proxy conflict. And the Arab-Israeli alliance against Iran emerged in November 2017. It's just a weird timeline, if you ask me, right? So the cover-up very likely then is this connection between the Israeli-Saudi relationships, because then at the same time, right, when you think the Jamal Khashoggi guy we talked about that got murdered a year exactly from that, he was a dissident of MBS and the whole purge, right? His uncle was very likely taken out in this purge or was suspected to have been taken out in this purge beforehand. And then the other guy, al-Walid, when he was held up in the purge, they were in the Ritz-Carlton. Yeah, the Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh. Not his hotel, maybe not his hotel, but he was extorted because the allegations was that he was extorting people. So they held him captive and basically said, you can be free, give us $6 billion. Which he did. And he's living today. Like I said, he has a interview out recently with Tucker Carlson. And all this connects basically to make it seem like the Vegas shooting was, again, an assassination attempt allegedly gone awry and a part of the consolidation of power by the Saudis. And potentially, was this all connected with Trump in a way then, having Kushner there? Did Trump have his guys do it in a way to make it look like XYZ? So having Paddock there, right, with the CIA connections as the patsy, it looked like, because he checked in with 3 women there, and it was like somebody said that there was a billionaire that wanted to buy some guns and shit, and he was an arms dealer, and that's why he had such a crazy arsenal in his room, because it made no sense why he had all these guns. When you see his room and stuff, there was just a crazy amount of guns, just all sorts of guns. And all that was supposedly for an arms deal. And he was then, in this theory, honeypotted, right? And then after he's the patsy, the lone gunman, after multiple people saying there's multiple gunmen, evidence of multiple shooters, right? The helicopter radar off, the muzzle flashes from other locations, just all the different shit, right? The Saudi purge is happening at the exact same time. And this is all happening at the exact same thing with, what's his face? The Saudis hotels, and then they pay to cover it up super fast. So there's an interview with Ellen where there's like a one security guard that said that, he got shot by Stephen Paddock. He took a huge fat sum and then just fucked off into nowhere and never talked to anybody else.
Damn.
And the fat sum came from MGM, a.k.a. the Saudis.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there's potentially, a U.S.-Saudi-Israel ties, basically a anti-Iranian allyship there that was there. And all that leads into a hilarious video, an absolutely hilarious video from none other than Alex
This has
Jones.
never even really been in the news, but it's a fact because I know the people that were involved in it.
And I told you back at the time, remember Vegas, the biggest mass shooting in U.S. history that they never want to talk about? That was Saudi Arabia with the deep state trying to embarrass Trump. And they ran the attack. And they had their arms dealer cut out. They thought he was just selling them weapons, and he was CIA connected. And then what did the United States do with Trump? He went over there with a coalition of the reformers in Saudi Arabia, and they wiped out all of the leadership in the royal family.
Yep.
Because there's hundreds of them. Because those kings don't just have one wife. And they wiped them out, killed a bunch of them, took them to the Ritz-Carlton and hung them up by their feet, took all their money away, the ones that got to live, and said, you're on house arrest for the rest of your life. And if you ever try anything again, you see your brother here, pull his eyeballs out with pliers. And I'm not saying that's a nice thing to do, but that's what was done. And that's what the Arabs recognize and respect. That's the kind of war Trump has where you never hear about it. Trump reportedly had over 10,000 of the ruling class of Saudi Arabia killed.
So he's going crazy with it, saying that Trump specifically made this order, because then that would say that there is no autonomy for the Saudis, which when I would say the only way that would happen is if it was a power play within. So that the connection, right, would have to be MBS needed Trump's help to fully establish power. And that's why Trump was a part of that as much. And then he owes him XYZ favor-wise. And that would then make sense why Saudi Arabia kind of dicked Biden around a bunch. Because they were trying to then make it look better for Trump afterwards. Potentially, that's the idea. But AJ is just going to talk about that, and he just interdimensional demons. It's crazy to think that the two craziest, worst tragedies in the history of the United States, civilian tragedies like this, were perpetrated specifically by this, at least with the Saudi government. 9/11 and the Vegas shooting. Yeah. If both of those are just, Saudi stuff. Also, by the way, the Four Seasons is mostly owned still by Bill Gates, and then it's owned by so Bill Gates in there too, a known affiliate of Epstein.
Jesus. Can you do me a huge favor and just Google how many people died in 9/11?
I think it was like 3,000 something.
Okay.
And then, but not including the people that got cancer from like the asbestos that came out after.
Right. Well, that's not immediate, so we don't care.
Yeah, 3,000. Boom.
Nice, man. Yeah. So I was just thinking, because like 600 people that died.
That's like 6 Holocausts or something. I'm kidding.
In the Vegas shooting. And like, you never fucking hear about the Vegas shooting.
Yeah.
I know almost nothing about the Vegas shooting.
There's some good videos on it already been made, so I didn't want to like do something crazy with it. I just thought that this was interesting just to have these documents coming out recently. So I figured we could do something with that. Yeah. But there's a ton about the Vegas shooting that people don't talk. There's actually
it's at least a fifth of 9/11.
Well, the fact that they're
and no one talks about it.
It's so crazy because it's so otherworldly the way that it all went down. It just doesn't make sense in like a way that 9/11 made way more sense. You have the inconsistencies in 9/11 where you're just like, that doesn't seem like a plane crash in the field in Pennsylvania. But what about Tower 7? Pentagon looks like it was hit by something else besides a plane. That doesn't look like a plane carcass in that bitch. Looks like it was hit by a missile or something. Yeah. All those things, like, why the buildings fall down? All that aside, it's even crazier to believe that Stephen Paddock by himself shot all those rounds.
Yeah, right? That's what I was thinking.
Even crazier.
I was thinking about it.
Even more improbable.
And it just doesn't make sense.
It literally doesn't at all. So, like, there's plenty of inconsistencies that people are just like, but 9/11 and stuff. But the Vegas shooting, like, you have to be, like, legit stupid to think it was just him.
But it was the bump trigger or whatever.
Oh, bump stops, yeah, and then we got to ban those, right? That's got to be the thing.
That's what did it.
I can't remember for the life of me the person that did the video, and I'm really sorry to them because they did a really good job of compiling the footage of it. But it's just all these other people that were at the festival, and you can hear the shots. They do not sound like they're coming from some crazy window, like up high, like it just not. Yeah. And they're like far away, and like sometimes it sounds like they're like moving, like the shots like are moving.
Yeah. Weird.
So all that inconsistencies, like all those inconsistencies, make you think like, what the fuck is how stupid are we all for just letting that go? I know some people obviously don't, right. And plenty of people don't, and they've been living this fucking truth their whole life since it happened. Like the last 8 years, they've been just screaming about it.
Did that really happen 8 years ago?
Yeah. It was October 1st, 2017, 8 years ago.
Jesus Christ. Yeah,
it was 8 years ago.
Fully here and present, just pulling the wool over your eyes and like just accepting it. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, and these are the people like.
That's what happened to me too.
Yeah, these are it'll all happen one day. So yeah, all Waleed and the Prez do go back. The Jared axis is interesting because Jared came in there and just, had a foot in the door to make some deals. And it was because he made some deals with the other guys, and the Israelis were obviously already in the government with AIPAC. They were already there, so they were cool. I bet Mossad was Mossad were the people that were doing the shots. No, let's not say that.
A Minecraft server.
Shut up.
I'm like, then it makes me wonder what the goal of killing so many people was. Was it just to like distract law enforcement so that they could get like an assassination underway, or like what was going on there?
I mean, there's probably multiple. Like, the hardest thing is to connect the dots and to figure out like the real motives in clear cut senses. A lot of times,
Jesus.
Look at all this, dude. There's bajillions of documents, dude, to find. Literally needle in the haystack to find these. Mm-hmm. There's so much to think about why they would kill so many people. But it does seem like it's just going to be a distraction, and the larger the number, the more people are outraged in that moment, because the original outrage for gun control was the huge thing, because he had all those guns on him. And so no one really thought about the inconsistencies as much of how anything happened. They were more worried about, whether or not people have automatic rifles, because that just seems more pertinent at the moment, because this guy had a bajillion of them and he was the guy. But if anything's shown you when these things happen, the first guy they think it isn't always the guy, because that's how it be for any so. There's another thing about the OKC bombing, how the original reporting was that there was, I think, 3 guys and 2 trucks.
Oh,
yeah,
that's good.
And how the explosion ended up almost, I think it was 7 feet down, and it was all in the bed of a truck, and it was a fertilizer bomb, but the axle ended up 40 feet just in another direction. So all of it just, I'm not a blast forensics guy and stuff, but what I'm trying to say is there was definitely more than one guy there. It was very likely that it was done by 3-letter agencies, because the weird fucking paramilitary group that he was a part of was just basically only FBI agents. So the idea that he wasn't is crazy. They were basically in some it was he was preaching the Turner Diaries and stuff. It's very similar to, there was a guy that was doing that before too. I saw it was on Fern YouTube channel. It was talking about an FBI guy that was getting into these alt-right groups, and it just kind of makes you wonder whether or not they are the ones to try to bring out the extremists in them to then entrap them into, you know what I mean? Planning out, doing a crime more, doing the legwork and trying to push them to do something that would put them behind bars for a long time. because that same story happened in the 90s where the Turner Diaries was all about like a race war that they were trying to start. That was like the whole crux of Timothy McVeigh and all that shit. And like the manifesto he had was to like start some race war. And that was also into some of the things like Dylan Roof. He was talking about like race war shit. So I feel like there's a lot of misdirection in those things. Not to say that those people don't exist in their own right, but to think that they're not infiltrated given the number of times that we've seen it happen before. So I don't know if they're as extreme as people think they are sometimes, or if that's just the FBI trying to make it like a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
Then they get
trying to make them extreme.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. There's a guy that was, in his mid 40s, and all of a sudden he's with a bunch of late 20s, early 20s guys, and he said that he was a part of these other racist groups and stuff, where he had tried to trap people and do stuff. I'm not saying that these groups don't do violent, like horrible shit. Some of them do. Some of them are all of the above. But the thought of like the race war thing just keeps coming up very often within the 3-letter agency co-opted racist groups, where they're trying to like start. It just seems weird. Maybe I'm grasping at straws here. This is why it's the podcast and not the fully researched videos that we still get wrong.
Right.
Suck a dick. We can watch the what's his face's thing on this. CoffeeZilla.
Today we're talking about the 20,000 Epstein files that got released. It's a complicated picture involving a lot of powerful people, but let me just say right up front, this is an ongoing story. There's a lot that's going to be released in the coming days, so just understand we're going to do our best to explain what has been happening, because this story has been full of twists and turns. It starts with the Democrats releasing 3 emails from the Jeffrey Epstein estate. One says that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump.
Skip ahead, because this is basically stuff I was talking about. So he ends up talking about
intentional. So we see first given a puppy as part of the preferential.
Yeah, dude. So this goes into why Ghislaine gets preferential treatment, and it was because he potentially there was exuded leverage in other deals before.
To know that Trump knew about the girls. Now, one thing I want to talk about is the fact that Epstein is saying, hey, look, Trump publicly said that it was me that he asked to stop, but actually it was Ghislaine that he asked to stop. And my question here is, if it is Maxwell that was the one who poached Virginia Giuffre from Mar-a-Lago and then trafficked her, then why is she getting so much special treatment? I mean, that is the part where the Republicans don't look good at all. I mean, what is going on with Ghislaine Maxwell, a convicted sex offender, trying to get a pardon, getting Todd Blanche to give her a softball interview, and then she immediately gets preferential treatment. Look, we've been over the fact that she's at basically a special prison in Bryan, Texas, where normally someone of her status wouldn't be allowed to go to because it's too nice, it's too low security. But in addition to that, new reports are saying that top officials at Camp Bryan are sick of being Maxwell's bitch. Federal law enforcement staff working at the camp have been waiting on Maxwell hand and foot, including, by the way, reportedly she's been given a puppy as part of the preferential treatment she's been receiving. Overwhelmingly, Maxwell has been getting a super nice ride in all of this. This, of course, makes us all wonder, once again, what do they have on Trump? I mean, why treat her like this if she doesn't have something compromising in all of that? It just kind of begs some questions you probably don't want to ask. Also very suspicious is the fact that immediately after this report came out, Trump personally called Rep. Lauren Boebert, urging her to withdraw support for releasing the Epstein files. Bondi, Blanche, and Patel, we're going to meet today about the Epstein files. This, of course, is furthering the idea the White House has no interest in this story. I think Trump tweeted multiple times today about the Epstein hoax. Again, we've heard that a million times. And the question is, why are you acting so suspicious if you have nothing to hide, right? If you didn't get the massage, which Epstein says, what are you hiding? Why are you so worried about all this stuff coming out? By the way, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was actually asked about the White House pressuring people to get them not to sign for the release of the Epstein files, and her response was pretty insane.
Why are White House officials then meeting with Representative Boebert in an effort to try and get her to not sign this petition calling for the release of the files?
Doesn't it show transparency that members of the Trump administration are willing to brief members of Congress whenever they please? Doesn't that show our level of transparency? Doesn't that show the level of transparency when we are willing to sit down with members of Congress and address their concerns?
It shows transparency to try to go and block files being released on the world's most prolific. But the fact we know about it, that's the transparent part. It's just insane. I mean, that's the kind of spin we've expected with this story all along. That's been part of what's been so frustrating about all of this. So look, I want to get back to this story because there's so many people involved here. We're just going to go through one by one. I mean, look, it's a lot more than just Trump. Like, one person that got kind of a weird stray in all of this was the fact that Epstein talked about Hillary doing naughties with Vince. Vince being Vince Foster, a White House counsel. There was a rumor about Clinton and Vince having some kind of affair, and then later Vince was found dead of suicide. And this is where we see Jeff.
Interesting. A whole thing on the Clintons would be crazy good, you know?
A whole lot of accidentals.
There was so many people that just suddenly and oddly die around the Clintons, dude.
Jeffrey Epstein and Michael Wolff's kind of symbiotic relationship. Michael Wolff is a journalist who has been prolific in all of this. Well, I struggle to call him a journalist, actually, because as we'll find, he was more like a PR guy for Epstein. But he was actually asking Epstein and using...
He was fucking Jeff Epstein's butt boy. That's what he was.
Epstein for a lot of access to information, because Michael Wolff actually told Jeffrey Epstein, hey, basically, I'm interviewing him this afternoon. Anything you think I should ask? And he's talking about Trump. Epstein replies, do you want to be provocative? Michael Wolff says, job is to get the hard ones in without being ejected from the room. What's the one that pierces through? Jeffrey Epstein basically says, hey, you can do this softball. That's a Hillary problem. He would smile, and then you can ask about his relationship with the Electricians Union and Mar-a-Lago, and out you go. Obviously hinting to the idea that he's going to get kicked out if he asks about more sensitive subjects. Michael Wolff asks about, hey, what's up with Foster? And then he describes what that's all about. And this brings us to Michael Wolff, who I want to spend a little bit of time here on. Although some of you may not know as much about him, you may be less interested in him. I think he's one of sort of the worst looking people in all of this. Actually, after reading these emails, he may be the most disgusting person that comes out of it. And that's saying a lot given what's in here. But I want to just show you this because actually the Democrats initially released was this idea was that Michael Wolff and Epstein were basically planning how to respond to Epstein being brought up in the context of Trump. Michael Wolff says, I hear CNN is planning to ask Trump about his relationship with you, either on air or in Scrum afterwards. Epstein says, if we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be? That being interesting because it's like, wait, were they in touch with Trump at this time? Because Trump denied being in contact with Epstein basically since early 2000s. But anyway, if he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the House, and that gives you valuable PR or political currency, you can hang him in a way that generates a positive benefit for you. Or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him generating a debt. Of course, it is possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey's a good guy that's gotten a raw deal and is victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in the Trump regime. Now, if it doesn't sound like PR, it might be something like blackmail to you. It's like kind of a little bit of both.
Oh, it sounds like blackmail. And you're like, that makes sense.
Michael Wolff is basically...
Also, dude, his username or he's got a Gmail.
Hell yeah.
And he's doing these emails on a Gmail. And it's Jeffrey Edward Epstein vacation.
Google had all the files the whole time.
They could have, dude, released the Gmail files.
Basically conspiring to generate a debt for Jeffrey Epstein from Trump, who is about to become the most powerful person on the planet. So that's really bizarre because Michael Wolff has positioned himself as sort of this truth teller about Jeffrey Epstein. And he's got all these tapes that he's going to release showing how close Trump and Epstein were. But it's like, behind the scenes, he was actually kind of running PR for Epstein, which is sort of the worst thing you could have ever done. This is in 2016. Michael Wolff is talking to Epstein.
Yeah, dude, at 2016, running PR for Epstein's kind of a crazy gig. This is like 8 years after he was a convicted sex offender, at least, where people were like knowing that he was the worst type of sex offender, a bad pedophile, dude. He wasn't just a pedophile. He was just like a down and out bad guy, dude. Because according to some of our commenters, being into blood play with 16-year-olds, that's fine.
According to our commenters.
Yeah, dude, that's cool. Someone said like because it was a direct quote from me where I said the age of consent is 16 in Rhode Island. Gross. And they said, "Wow, I didn't know OP was a fag." Like, yep. You think that you're questioning whether or not Sam Hyde is a ped? You must be Jewish. It's like, have you seen me?
These are real thoughts that people have put together.
Have you seen me though? Like, I'm so obviously not like I wouldn't be allowed in a synagogue because they thought that like I would be some sort of underground fucking neo-Nazi immediately. That's crazy.
About a Patterson book, which later becomes the James Patterson Filthy Rich book. He said
that book is all throughout the fucking photos. Holy shit, is it annoying?
Says basically that would present some time issues if it was released too early. You would not be able to do a competing book or documentary before then. That's not to say it shouldn't be pursued. In a sense, better to know what Patterson's position is and a year from now be able to counter it. In 2016, he's playing like PR, I'm going to fix your reputation, Jeffrey Epstein. He then says, that being said, if you need an immediate counter to the book, I believe Trump offers an ideal opportunity. It's a chance to make the story about something other than you while at the same time letting you frame your own story. Also, becoming an anti-Trump voice gives you a certain political cover, which you decidedly don't have now. And so again, we get the idea of him kind of scheming to get Epstein cover, which is so bad because now Michael Wolff is like, oh, we're the guy exposing Trump's connections to Epstein. And it's like, buddy, what are your connections to Epstein? Then we have later them discussing a lawsuit against Epstein and Donald Trump with a woman claiming that she was Michael Wolff responds.
Like, oh, that couldn't be good. And then this was in like 2016,
it's
by
like,
the way.
Buddy, what are your Donald Trump with a woman claiming that she was Michael Wolff responds, well, I guess if there's anyone who can wave this away, it's Donald. Let me know if there's anything I can do. Again, why are you trying to do something for a man accused of these things? It really seems like Michael Wolff was kind of running cover here. Now, I also want to talk about the Prince Andrew Trump scandal that appears to have been brewing here, or at least is implied in the emails. You may see some people say that Epstein met Trump and Prince Andrew back in 2019, which of course would be well after Trump said they had no contact, which would be bad news for Trump. In fact, there's a few things in here which suggest that Epstein had contact with Trump. Of course, we don't know for sure. I'll just present you the evidence we do have. So this is back in 2019, June 3rd. They're talking about London real estate, about how financials are going to leave. Then Epstein says, once they're gone, the monarchy is dependable, saying Prince Andrew and Trump today, too funny. And this is actually the same day that Trump and Andrew are spotted in London, of course, meeting together. Jeffrey Epstein says, recall Prince Andrew's accuser came out of Mar-a-Lago, Virginia Giuffre. Then we have a sender that's blacked out, but I think there's strong evidence that it's Steve Bannon, by the way, just to give you some context.
And dude, Steve Bannon fucking emailing back and forth with Epstein in 2019 is crazy. And also it's JEE iTunes at Gmail.
Yeah, it is.
Dude, there's JEE Vacation, JEE iTunes. Not at iTunes. Nah, dude, not.
They say, can't believe nobody is making you the connective tissue. So the connective tissue between these two being Epstein. And then Epstein replies, F&B only. Now later, Jeffrey Epstein says, report from London. Donald now thinks he's king. Ivanka a princess. He doesn't need advisors. Bannon says, yep, London trip not good. He had a gleam in his eye. Of course, this hinting at the idea that Epstein was there. If he got a report from London, if he's talking about Prince Andrew and Trump, or that's how people are coming to that conclusion at least. And then we have the thread that makes us know this is Steve Bannon, which is he gives a link where it says Steve Bannon believes Trump obstructed justice. Michael Wolff says, he says BBC crushed him. He should give it up. The book is going to be a stiff. I don't know if he senses that. Epstein replies, unfortunately, I do know his comments have encouraged some to look to you for answers. This all being about an article about Steve Bannon, obviously. And then Steve Bannon says, Burke says, I have zero to worry about. Now, if you don't know who Burke is, he's a lawyer who previously defended Steve Bannon. Epstein then replies, good but unnecessary. Should I call Michael Wolff? Bannon says, what are you going to say to him? He's a wild animal caught in a trap. Epstein says, catch his breath. Bannon says, tell him to lay off me. It's both not working and not helping. Okay, done. Again, this is all in the context of Michael Wolff talking about Steve Bannon, and then he says, hey, tell him to back off. This is furthering the idea that Epstein, Bannon, Michael Wolff, they all had a close relationship, which is mostly public knowledge, but we see exactly how close. Now, in addition to this, I also wanted to note this very strange interaction between these two, where Epstein sends a news article about George Nader being basically caught up in some child pornography charges, and then Bannon says, not cool. Epstein, mandatory minimum 15. Bannon says MBZ must have coughed him up. How did he get extradited? Could have stayed in UAE forever. Epstein says he was not extradited. He was duped. Bannon.
Dude, can I get more pixels?
WTF. Epstein, there is his bail hearing today, currently in Brooklyn. Doesn't look good, pre-trial detention. Now, I personally found it strange that they were so concerned about the fate of someone caught up in such horrible charges. We'll also talk about the Thanksgiving message. This one got a lot of attention, which is that Epstein was going to Thanksgiving, and he was asked, where are you having Thanksgiving? He says, Eva. This lady, Faith Cates, replies, he's such a snooze. Who else is down there? He replies, David Fizzle, Hansen, Trump. And once again, Trump claims that he was not in contact with Jeffrey Epstein after the early 2000s. He said, hey, I cut him off. I realized he was a bad guy. And if Epstein's having Thanksgiving with him, that's obviously a problem. Now, I don't have any public confirmation for that outside of these emails, which are basically talking.
I mean, like the idea that he was in 2017 as president meeting with the soon-to-be twice arrested a disgraced pedophile. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's just next level insanity. We live in the end times. I think it's over.
Maybe they've always been pedophiles.
Dude, can we just like not have people what happens when you like get to power? Is that just like the urge just overwhelms you?
I think so.
You don't have those urges beforehand, right? You go in there just completely normal sexually, at least, and then once you get that level of power, then you say, "Why not, dude? I'm that great. I'm that powerful. Get a boy over here."
Yeah. You Jimmy Neutron brain blast that shit. The neurons connect, and it all makes sense.
What do you think that's what happens? Is that when they like nut inside a boy, that there's like some sort of brain blast situation? It's like. Almost like euphoria. It has to be, right?
It has to be primal. There has to be like some little peanut in our brain that like once we become the alpha, it like activates, right?
Oh, I see. It's some sort of like domination shit is what they play it as.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I just can't get over how gay it is. So I can't think of it as like some sort of dominating thing. But yeah, I guess. That's still crazy. But yeah, why would you do it to boys then? I guess there was like there was things about Roger Stone just taking a random staff member at the island, and somebody walked in on it. Yeah, he was just fucking with like a Nixon mask, just fucking. Or no, not a Nixon mask. He has a Nixon back tattoo.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and he fucking was apparently just like. I don't know, just throat fucking some boy, maybe a man. I don't know. It didn't seem. It seemed like it was some like towel boy that just got like fucking like come here.
Yeah, like even the Romans were doing that shit. I'm sure the Egyptians too.
Bro, I'll tell you what. If this blows up, I promise I'll have some good allegations for you. Okay, that's all I'll say. It's like it'll be a great downfall as well.
We'll work something out.
We'll work something. We'll make our own iceberg on ourselves, like faking my own death. Where would that be on the iceberg?
That'd be pretty deep. That'd be like a long lost episode.
Yeah. Well, there's more than that though too. It's like taking a wheelchair to the DMV twice. What other things? Faking my death with the trivia place. Or no. What did I say? Hunting down vigilante justice instead of going to my trivia job.
Telling my boss my dog died, so I have to fly to.
I chased him, dude. I said that I was like, in my car. He's like, yeah, he's in Mexico. I'm not gonna let this fucking slide, dude.
crossing
like,
the border.
if you don't want to go to work, just tell me.
Did he say like, "Wow, I'm so sorry about your dog"?
At first he did, but like after a while, because he's like, "Can you make it now?" And I just gave him like a furthered story. Like I'm
Like, dude, I'm in Pueblo right now.
Yeah, because I did multiple week, so he was just like, "Are you good?" 4 days later or something like that. 3 days later,
Like,
I
no,
said-
I'm not good. It happened to be a member of the cartel that killed
Yeah,
my dog,
exactly.
and now I'm hunting down half the cartel. No, it's not good.
Exactly. Literally, that was it. It was me telling him, I'm hunting down vigilante justice deep within the cartel territory. If you don't hear from me again, I'm sorry, and I love trivia.
It's sad to say I won't be making it to trivia tonight.
I can't make it to trivia, dude. I'm so sorry. There's other ones. What other like lore? What would you even have? Faking John's death.
Right.
It was like fucking making John's death a hilarious thing instead of. So the whole thing was allude to my death, not in Adam's mind. He said, "Fuck that shit. John died in a fiery car wreck. It was crazy, dude. You should have seen the flips." And then Jeff said, wait. And then Jeff said,
"How's his family?"
Can still feel the emotion.
And I'm gonna try to pull myself together.
But what's crazy is your second coming.
Adam. Oh, Adam.
dude, yeah, I was resurrected. Which it was nice. The fact that they cared way more than I had ever, even in my wildest dreams, imagined.
I think I told them you died quickly, but then I told them you burned to death.
Yeah.
And then I told him I was in a coma. and Jeff was just like blown away, dude. He was like,
"Hello, Adam."
dude, that was, you can hear the disposition change. Ready?
"Hello, Adam."
This was when you were just my emergency contact. And he thought that John was maybe like his phone broke or something. And then it went to,
"How's his family?"
I had to return your laptop.
1 of 8.
It's like, there's so many laptops, Jeff. You're gonna have to help me out here.
"Oh, Adam."
So we got the laptop, and I drove Adam to return my laptop when I was dead. And somebody cried about it. I didn't meet that person, I'm pretty certain. I don't remember ever meeting, like, I met like 5 people.
When I walked up to the building to hand a person your laptop, I was trying to get into the building, right? And there was a guy that didn't know what was happening. It was just some random dude that was working there. And I was like, "Hey, don't work here, but I'm dropping off a coworker's laptop, blah, blah." He really didn't want to let me in.
Yeah.
And he was like holding the door ajar, like blocking the door so that I can't come in. And then like his boss lady, higher up person, comes running over crying. And she's like, I'm so sorry.
And Adam, by the way, completely fine. He's my emergency contact.
I'm chilling.
And it just happened. Adam was not bothered.
Right.
You should have just fake cried with her.
Yeah, I should have.
No, that would have been so funny if she would have realized that you were fake crying and I just came around the corner. I was like, I'm kidding. That would have been actually, dude, we should have made that a prank show. Just pranking Jeff.
You're an impractical joker.
I'll do it in the middle of a pedophile sting. It'd be really funny for the Infobren guy on Instagram if he just started doing pedophile stings with his character too. The way he's just awkward. Would you like some pickled eel sphincter? And then just yeah, it's just whatever whatever with pedophiles.
I mean, I'd watch it.
I would, dude. Him just saying, "Are you two related, or is love in the air?" Well, That's the podcast. See ya.